Hi, everybody.
You're on.
Here we are, a little different background today. I felt like spicing things up and not having the same. So next week you change.
Well, I'm still buried in the brick basement somewhere. You're up in the tower
Yeah, I'm up
overlooking
in
the
the scenic overlook.
scenic overlook.
So today we're going to be talking about my favorite topic, and I think this ties in nicely with the concept of the great resignation slash great regret slash great retraining slash if it's to be, it's up to me to
The
make
greatest,
all that happen.
the greatest show on earth.
Yes. And because, regardless of whether it's COVID or something else, there's always going to be something. Now,
Yeah,
we know we've all been through the ringer as regards COVID. And I know that there's also, this idea of the great regret has to do with the fact that some people are not so glad that they left the job that they had before COVID. But, if they did, my question is what was going on that made you do that?
yeah, and just because it didn't work out exactly what they thought was going to happen doesn't mean it's the wrong choice. Just means that they didn't follow up and do the things that they need to do to be able to make the most out of it.
What's your take on this great regret idea?
I think the regret is more has to do with the things like benefits and ease of equipment, and some of you got an IT department and an HR department. The resignation, people resigned because they wanted to go be consultants. They thought, well, I'll just get my computer and get online, and there you are. I got a whole nother business without realizing what goes into actually doing that, and the work that we've had to do in the last 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years. You're always working at it, and it takes a lot of effort to be on your own and to be your own consultant, but it's very rewarding. So
Yeah.
I never regretted it, but I suppose there've been times when I said, "Oh, I wish I had something a little easier to do, or somebody was sending me a check every week." But when I see what's happened in the workplace over the last decade, just the insecurity and the lack of what's the word,
Guarantee.
predictability, I suppose,
Guarantee.
and the lack of guarantee. I mean, I would much rather take my chances with my own. If it's to be, it's up to me, and it's up to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to us. I'd rather have that than to be worried about what the boss is going to say, or are we still going to be in business, or who's going to merge and acquire us? Am I going to keep my job? You hear it all over the place. So I can understand the resignation quite a bit, man. I think a lot of people did that because they were just sick of commuting. They were sick of putting up with the office politics. And they figured, what the hell. But then they
Child
get up
care.
there.
I mean,
They
there
get up
are a
and,
lot of issues that had been able to, people could tap into that concept. So we are Dave and Laura Butler. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us if you're listening to the recording. A little intro about us in case you don't know. So we'll be right back.
We're in it together. We're in it together. If you get off track, I got your back. Remember. Oh yeah. We're in this together.
nice.
Yeah, so I can't think of a better way when we're in it together to say if it's to be, it's up to me. So to segue from that topic and why we feel it's so applicable to great regret, great resignation, great retraining is let's take a look at some of the things that we focus in on. So the idea of if it's to be, it's up to me, I think is looking at the horizon in a bigger way. It's taking on rather than waiting and hoping, wishing and hoping, and what was that? Wishing and hoping,
We're
and
hoping and wishing and wishing and hoping.
Yeah, there was a great song back in our day.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't happen that way. So what we're going to talk about is if you're at that point where you're looking to jump ship, let's say, or explore other options, that's what we're going to be focusing on. The other side of this is for those people who are staying, in particular for leaders who are motivating people to stay, this information will be helpful as well. So it's supporting the people who are on board, committed. Now, I worked 2 weeks ago with a team who I couldn't say was more committed, who's gone through a big merger, huge change and transition, and they were all in it to win it. So that to me is the essence of if it's to be, it's up to me. That we embrace it, that we take it, that we own it, and put whatever we need to put in place to make that happen.
Yeah, because if you're waiting for somebody else to do it for you, you're going to wait an awful long time. I mean, I like the picture here with the flag up in the sky, but you know, she's going to be waving and waving and waving, trying to get somebody to come over and pick her up. It's not the way that it happens. You know, you have to get in the swing of things. You got to get on the boat. You got to go find something to fit into. And if I had something I might add to the Great Resignation and the Great Regret and all the rest of it, I like to think of it as a great reset. This is where you have a chance to reset your career. You have a chance to reset some of the choices you made maybe 10, 15 years ago that maybe are not working out the way that you had hoped. Now's the time. This is an excellent time to do the reset for yourself and take a look at what you really want, where you're really going. Now that you've got some experience under your belt, this is a great time to do it. But don't do it on your own. Do it with a coach like us. Do it with other people that you're working with. You really can't do it alone.
No, and it's a great segue into our 4 key questions that we always help our clients address when they're in the middle of this kind of, crossroads, if you will, but also in that leadership space where you're trying to motivate others to be engaged and to stay. So is addressing who am I? It's always going to take a look at what do I love to do? What are my strengths or the style, the way that I go about aligning that passion, and what are my motivators that will tap into that. And I wish I could get rid of this. Let me see if that, no. There is a way to get rid of that slide there, but because I have something that's behind there. But regardless, it's all about authenticity and identity. So if we can figure out that, this is who I am and this is how I want to be seen.
Well, it's also what's important to me.
Right.
It's different than going to work every day and having somebody else tell you what's important to them, and that's why you're working there. It's you being able to answer the question, what's important to me? So when I look back on my work on a daily basis, I feel like it has some meaning for me.
Right. Well, and it's really about the leadership lesson here is about presence, stepping into who I am and knowing who I am by self-awareness, by addressing what do I need to align my passion, my style, my needs. And the passion, style, and needs is all directly linked to the tool of our choice, which is the Berkman method. So we don't even start to talk to people without getting a sense of who you are, your own self-awareness by through the Berkman method.
Well, I remember you used to call it the operating manual of you.
Yeah.
That's what the Berkman is. I mean, you got to at least have the basic information about yourself.
And what's on this slide are key exercises that whenever I work with senior leaders or individual contributors, we do the same thing because it's exactly what is needed at this stage. Who are your role models? There's so many people I'm hearing lately because the careers are changing. There's new roles. So I don't have a role model. Well, you become one. You start it. Start the link. And also the postcard exercise, which is an exercise that we do both with teams and individuals to get a sense of and identifying what strengths you bring to the team and to yourself, and also being very clear to be able to articulate something that says, when people ask you, who are you? Tell me about yourself, that you can succinctly say something in 15 to 30 seconds.
Yeah. And the idea behind the postcard exercise is to build a little creativity.
Right.
I'm not just a list of skills. I have a concept of myself. I have a metaphor for what I'm doing. I'm like a tree. I'm like a railroad engine. I'm like a whatever it is. And it sort of engages my imagination.
And these exercises are directly out of our work-life transition workbook that we've helped people who are just starting out and people who are in some sort of transition later on in their career. And we help them come to terms with what are their values. There could be something around what you want that is directly misaligned with what your compass is telling you,
Right.
what your values are.
Right. I meant to tell you this morning, I had a conversation with one of the executives that we're coaching. She's in between positions right now. And she said, I can't tell you how many times I've gone back to that executive workbook that you gave me and just reviewed the things that we worked on, because it helps her to understand what it is when she goes for an interview, when she targets networking. She knows what it is that she wants to talk about.
Right. That's great. Well, this is answering the question. First one was, who am I? This is, well, if you know who you are, what do you want? And it's about being able to express yourself and present yourself, by combining these core values and by prioritizing what your next steps are. And you do that, like you said before, you're not doing this alone. So this is through, trusted advisors, mentors, your network, coaches. There's a lot of very helpful steps and work that people can put in place before they even, sort of sweeten up the resume. I mean, the resume is the last thing.
Yes, it's sort of like the afterthought. Oh yeah, here's my resume, by the way.
Today's world, it's all about the story, how you communicate. Herminia Ibarra, one of our favorite thought leaders, says what you need to do in this step is engage your strategic network. Not your personal. Well, personal helps though, because sometimes you could have a link in a personal connection to somebody who might be a strategic step. So, but personal, people utilize personal and professional very well.
Yeah.
But that strategic network, not as much.
Well, you were talking the other day about my Katharine Hepburn story.
Yeah.
I did a workshop one time, and I did a little exercise with networking. And I said, anybody here, just give me anybody that you think you'd like to meet, and we'll see if anybody else in the room knows anybody. So this wise guy in the back said, well, I'd like to meet Katharine Hepburn. I thought, oh boy, here we go. So I went and looked out to the rest of the crowd and said, does anybody know anybody that could possibly arrange some sort of a way of maybe getting to meet Katharine Hepburn? And there was this dead silence, and I thought, oh boy, I sunk it this time. And this little girl in the front will raise her hand like sheepishly. And I said, yes. What do you got? She said, well, my mother cleans her house. Would that help?
Yep. There you go. Well, the next question is, where am I going? And this covers accountability and resilience. So if you compile your career story in a way that targets your 15, 30-second commercial, along with those pieces combined with autobiography and your experiences, which is what the PAR story is all about. So what was the problem or the success that you felt you accomplished and addressed? What were the action steps that you took, and what were the results? And when you compile those and keep track of them, it's like a diary of steps I took.
Yeah, it's like a storybook.
Yeah, that then can be put into your career story.
The story of you.
And this leadership for skill building, meaning, how can leaders help those who are currently engaged, is to keep going with the IDP process, have regular discussions, find out how people are dealing with this change and transition.
Right. Check
How
in.
are they leading their lives? How are they doing at home? What's going on with their families and all of this. That was one thing that I took away from the invites I received from Patrick Lencioni's team right after COVID hit.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of consultants meet regularly and hear what are we doing to help leaders and organizations during this unexpected change that we were all going through. And he found that what was most valuable is that leaders just gathered their people together and just simply asked, how are you? And it's the same today. It's the same thing. People jump in, let's get the to-do list done. Yeah, they're going to jump out pretty soon if we keep going with that pace. And then the final is, how do I get there? And this is all about achieving clarity and working in collaboration with others.
Yep.
The action plan that you would organize for yourself around what are the next steps? What do you look at for your current role? What are you looking at for your future? What do you want to achieve? How are you going to get there? And who are the resources, people? What are the resources, classes? And then the final piece is how about health and well-being? How are you taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, relationships, as you continue to build that network and that certain story or the pitch? And this is all about pulling all these pieces together and getting a very clear story in place.
And having an action plan. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And reiterating what we use the Berkman for, we use it because of its validity. It's been around for 75 years. We use it consistently for developing leaders, for people who are in transition with career or roles, improving teamwork. We can mix in scores and create different views of a mix of teams and have them work together in ways they don't usually work. Selecting talent, diversity of thought, I think, is the most important of all, because you can't go much further without that, and increasing sales. So if we're looking at what we want to do from here, I think this is what's it going to be for you? If we look at, if it's to be, it's up to me, what is it going to be? And I love this quote. This is from the book Presence. There's an exciting future that is waiting to emerge through us, a future that is connected to our deepest purpose and desires and in concert with a larger whole.
Very good.
You can't get much better than that one.
Sign me up.
And speaking of signing up, we have a program that is called the True Direction Work-Life Program. It would either be for yourself or someone you know, like a student, somebody in transition, somebody who's struggling to find what they want to do with their lives and they've come to a crossroads, or as I said, for yourself, just to be able to articulate the things that we just went through. The True Direction Program is something that you can do on your own as a DIY format, or you can also schedule time to work with either Dave or myself or another member of the Work-Life team. The link, very easy, go.worklifeonline.com/direction. And this way you can look at some additional information that we have on that page and through that URL.
Yeah, I think a combination is the best way to do it. Do some DIY yourself. Ask for a little dusting off, to take off some of the rough edges, maybe make a few suggestions. I think that's an excellent way to do the program.
Absolutely. So if you'd like to follow up with us, just go to worklifeonline.com for additional information. There's also a couple of interesting links there. One link is to a quiz that helps you to identify the career path you would like to focus on that may be different from what you are currently doing. The
Mhm.
other thing there would be to sign up for additional information from us and keep in touch consistently with the work life team. So, any closing thoughts, Dave?
Just that thought I had about the Great Reset. I think it's time for us all to reset a little bit. Everybody's careers and job descriptions only are good for like 3 months. Everything's changing so rapidly and so quickly. We need to reset ourselves to be able to make the most out of what the future has to offer us.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. We'll see you probably next week.